Hi everyone, my name is Kylie Rose, and here is my final presentation for our policy exploration. Throughout this course, I decided to focus on the policy of inclusion of children with disabilities into early childhood education programs. I chose to focus on this policy because it directly connects to my future goals as a speech-language pathologist. SLPs work closely with children who have disabilities, especially with those with speech and language impairments, which is actually one of the most common reasons students receive individualized education program services. I am also passionate about supporting autistic children and helping them communicate through augmentative and alternative communication. For these students, inclusive early education environments are essential for building social connections, practicing communication skills, and accessing the same learning opportunities as their peers. Understanding this policy helps me see how federal laws shape real-world classroom experiences and prepares me to advocate for inclusive, supporting learning environments in my future career. This policy focuses on the inclusion of young children with disabilities in high-quality early childhood programs alongside their peers without disabilities. Federal laws like the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which I will refer to as IDEA, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, guarantee access to inclusive early learning settings like childcare, preschool, and Head Start. Under IDEA, children must receive a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. This means that they are educated alongside their non-disabled peers whenever appropriate. 13 disability categories are eligible, comprehensive evaluations are required, and parents are ensured rights such as consent, participation, and due process. Under ADA, discrimination is prohibited and equal access to educational programs are ensured. Title II of ADA applies to public schools, preschools, and state-funded early childhood programs to ensure children with disabilities have equal access to services, reasonable modifications, accessible environments, and effective communication supports. Title III of ADA applies to these protections to private child care centers and private preschools, requiring them to accept children with disabilities, make reasonable accommodations, and avoid policies that exclude or segregate children based on a disability. Why is this policy important? For one, it supports developmental growth. Inclusive settings give children with disabilities access to rich learning experiences that promote communication, social skills, and cognitive development. It encourages social belonging. Learning alongside peers helps build friendships, reduce stigma, and support emotional well-being. It improves long-term outcomes. Research shows that early inclusive education leads to a stronger academic success and better life skills as children grow. It provides equal access to education. Inclusion ensures children with disabilities receive the same opportunities, education, and classroom engagement as their peers. And last, it benefits all children. Peers without disabilities also gain positive experiences such as increased empathy, acceptance, and understanding of all differences. Next, the policy history. Inclusive education has evolved through major federal laws that expanded protection and opportunity for children with disabilities. The movement first began with the Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 1975, which first guaranteed access to a free, appropriate public education. Later, in 1990, this law became IDEA, adding new disability categories such as autism and traumatic brain injury, as well as strengthening services. The ADA, which was also passed in 1990, broadened civil rights protections by prohibiting disability-based discrimination in public and private schools. The ADA Amendments Act of 2008 later expanded the definition of disability to ensure more individuals received protection. Together, these milestones shaped inclusive practices used in early childhood programs today. On the right side of the slide, I have a quick, even briefer overview of the policy history if you'd like to look at that. Next, for my advocacy plan. My advocacy plan is centered around helping families and educators better understand inclusive education and their rights protected under IDEA and ADA. These efforts can help families feel more confident advocating for their child's needs while also strengthening collaboration between educators and families by improving a shared understanding. Last, I want to encourage schools and communities to reflect on their current inclusive practices and identify areas for improvement. First, a family-friendly pamphlet. Create clear, easy-to-read pamphlets explaining what inclusive education is and what IDEA and ADA guarantee. Include examples of effective inclusion. Add a basic overview of family rights. Explain developmental benefits of inclusion and connection of these benefits to research and childhood development theories. Next, a community podcast. Produce short podcast episodes featuring real stories from families and educators who have been experienced inclusive or non-inclusive classrooms. Highlight situations where inclusion succeed and where families struggle due to lack of information or support. Use these stories to show why inclusion matters on a practical, emotional, and developmental level. And I would share this podcast with school districts, parent groups, community centers, and early childhood programs to broaden access. So for my personal advocacy plan, I chose to do a pamphlet. So here is the pamphlet. On the front page, I have a brief overview of what it is. It's a guide for families and schools to support children with disabilities in learning, growing, and belonging. On the back page, I have a quote that I thought was really impactful from Caroline Casey. Disability inclusion is not discretionary. It is a must, as well as our contact information. And then on the inside, I would have what inclusive education is, a brief overview of it, as well as some examples that you can see in a real classroom. Next, on the other pages, I would have why does it matter? I'd have some benefits for children with disabilities as well as their peers without disabilities, and what research shows in connection to ideas of childhood development theories like Vygotsky's developmental theory. And then I would have the child's rights under ADA as well as IDEA. And then I would have an invitation to a community inclusion night where you can come learn more about the inclusive early education and the rights under IDEA and ADA. I have who you will hear from at the meeting and what you will gain. And then I have the date, time, and location, as well as inviting it to families, educators, and community members. Thank you so much for watching my presentation.